Hello, and welcome to Chapter 2, Section 2 for our SK8 class. This is on multiplying fractions. Now, multiplying fractions, we're going to start by simplifying them and kind of understand that whole concept back there, and then we're going to move on to the actual steps of multiplication. The first thing I need you to understand, and we covered this a little bit last section, is how fractions can be equal to each other, equivalent. We call them equivalent fractions. Here I've broken this bar in half. This bar I've broken into 4 pieces. This bar I've broken into 6 pieces. And they're all equal because I'm still talking just about half of the total of the bar. And the question is, how do I get from 4/8 to 1/2 without actually having to draw the pictures? Well, we're going to start, I'm going to take 3/6 here. We're going to start by finding the factors. Remember, a factor is one of the two numbers that multiply together to get the answer to a multiplication problem. Well, 3 is just 3. It's 3 times 1. But 6 is 3 times 2. So you can see here that they both have 3 as a factor. Now, it's really easy to do these easy numbers, but if you end up with fractions with bigger numbers, you can actually use factor trees to help you get to where you're going, finding all of the factors so that you can find the common factors and get rid of those. So, what do we do with this? Well, I know that 3 goes into both 3 and 6, so I'm going to divide the top and the bottom number both by 3. And 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now we have reduced or simplified this fraction into its simplest terms. Now, when you end up doing your homework, and when you end up taking your test, reducing or simplifying to its simplest terms is required. So I need you to be able to see when you look at this that these are two numbers that 3 goes into both of them. Here's where I really need you good at your multiplication facts. Multiplication facts will help you with fractions immensely, especially as the numbers get bigger and bigger. Okay? Now, the picture part of fractions is introduced to you on page 2-22, but we actually start using some math to break down and reduce or simplify fractions on pages 23 and 24. So go through those examples step by step and have a look at some of the guided practice and even some of the concept checks at the end of that little mini section, and make sure that you can do those types of problems, okay? Next, we're going to learn how to estimate fractions. Now, as they're teaching it to you, what they want you to understand is the entire concept, but we don't use the entire concept all the time. So I'm going to teach it in depth, and then I'm going to say, but you don't have to use it this way all the time. So, when you're estimating a fraction, you're going to take an irregular fraction and you're going to round off the numbers to get a fraction that you can recognize. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm looking at 33 over 60. 33 over, it's really difficult for me to picture chopping something up into 60 pieces and talking just about 33 of them. I don't really know what that looks like. So what I want to do is I want to round this off. Well, this is already kind of a rounded number. This number I'm going to round off to 30. 30 over 60. And now I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 10, which really just gets rid of my zeros. So now I've got 3/6, which is really 1/2 because I just did this on the last page. So 33/60 is about 1/2. And I can totally picture that. I also know that 33 is a little bit bigger than 30, so I know that my estimation is a little bit small. That's okay. It tells me something. What about 17/80ths? Well, 80 is a rounded number, but what if I rounded off the number 17? I would round that to 20 over 80. And I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 10. Now I've got 2/8. Well, I know that 2 goes into both of those numbers, so what I've really got is 1/4. So I've rounded that off. I've rounded off the irregular numbers to numbers that I can actually work with and hopefully simplify or reduce down to something that I can actually picture. 90 over 101, I'm going to round this number off to 100. 90 over 100. And I'm going to divide both by 2. Now I've got 9/10. 9/10 is something, well, that's almost 1. That's something I can really picture. So in your book, it asks you to look at the fractions and draw pictures of what 90 over 101 probably looks like. Now, that part kind of drives me crazy because how accurate are your pictures supposed to be when you have to break something up into 101 pieces? I'm sorry, that's not, yeah, whatever. Anyway, I would like you to look at the ability to round off the irregular numbers and get yourself to a number that you can work with. Now, having said that, it's important to be able to do this whole thing. But from now on, when you're given numbers with fractions in them, really what I want you to be able to do is figure out, is it close to the half or is it close to a whole number? Because that's the important part. So for example, here, usually when we estimate fractions, we want to know the basics, like 3 and 27/30. Is that number closer to 3 or 3.5 or 4? So here's our basic number line. What is it that we're looking at? How close is it? So I'm going to look at 27/30 and I'm going to go, okay, I know that half of 30 is 15/30. Is 27 closer to 30 or closer to 15? 27 is actually almost all the way to 30. 27 is closer to 30. So if I were to round 3 and 27/30, I would round that number up to 4. On your test and on your final, it's going to ask you to hear some fractions and some mixed numbers, and it's going to ask you to estimate them and then add, subtract, multiply, whatever. So it's important for you to understand that I'm talking about 3, 3.5, and 4, not 17/80 is really 1/4. So I really just want the basics, but I need you to understand the concept so that you can do the basics well, okay? So if you could, on page 226, I'd like you to look over what they've got going there and see if all that makes sense and work some of those problems so that you can get good at it, so you can do the homework that you need to, so that you can do well on the test, okay? And now we get to multiply. So let's say I've got 2/3 and I'm going to multiply it by 3/4. First thing I'm going to do is say, what does it mean to multiply something by 3/4? So here I'm going to do a little demo for you. I've got a happy little piece of paper that I've cut into thirds, and I've highlighted 2 of those thirds. So this is my 2/3 paper. I want to find 3/4 of 2/3, because the word of means multiply. Good to know in your word problems. So I'm going to break this page into fourths. So I am going to fold this into 4 pieces. And I'm going to draw lines so you can see them. And I'm going to shade in 3 of these 4. So what I want you to be able to see is that 3/4 of 2/3 is really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 6/12. 6/12, which I would then have to divide by 6 to learn that it's 1/2. This is what it means when I say multiply fractions. Do you have to do this every time? No. What you have to do is be able to work it out mathematically. Here's how that works. First thing I'm going to tell you is the easiest way to do this is you're just going to multiply the numbers straight across. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. and then you have to reduce it. And that equals 1/2. Poof. It's that easy. You multiply straight across. Now, sometimes these numbers can get kind of big and kind of hairy. And what I'd like you to do is teach you the reducing trick. You can actually reduce your answer before it even becomes an answer. And that's called cross-canceling. Cross-canceling is taking out common factors to simplify the problem. But you take out, here I waited until the end and I found the common factors. You can actually take out the common factors before you even do the problem. It makes multiplying easier and it reduces the answer before it's the answer. For example, cross-canceling means you look diagonally at the numbers. So here, look, I've got a 3 and a 3. Well, I know that they both have a 3 in common. So I'm going to actually divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now I'm going to look at this diagonal. A 2 and a 4 both have a 2 in common. 2 goes into both of those. 2 goes into 2, 1. 2 goes into 4, 2 times. Now that I've cross-canceled, if I were to now multiply straight across, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. Check this out. I got straight here. I didn't have to go to this step. Now you might be thinking to yourself, oh, but this step is no problem and this looks complicated. What if the numbers, your fractions, are 12 over 31 times 42 over 27 or something ridiculous like that? I'd really like to take all the common factors out before I had to multiply straight across and end up with numbers like 247 over 900. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather not deal with the big numbers. I'd rather take them out here. So I'm going to ask you, while it's easy, to start taking them out here so you can get good at this. Okay? There are, on page 228 and 229, there are a lot of examples of how to multiply fractions. So go through those, try and practice your cross-canceling skills, and see how that fits with you, okay? One of the other things that they want you to see is how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. For example, if they ask you to multiply 5/6 times 7, what I want you to realize is you can make 7, or any whole number, into a fraction really easily just by putting it over 1. Now, you can multiply straight across. I'm going to check for cross-canceling. I can't cross-cancel anything. 5 times 7 is 35, and 6 times 1 is 6. And we have, oh my goodness, an improper fraction. How many times does 6 go into 35? 6 goes into 35 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. So I've used up 30 of my 35, and I have 5 left over. 5 what? 5 6. I'm going to bring that 6 right over. Okay? That's how you do those problems. So give a few of those problems a try. Push pause, have a look at them, come back when you're done with that.